Today I'm going to show you how to sync your Obsidian Notes between Windows and iOS without relying on Google Drive, iCloud, or OneDrive. We'll be using my solution Syncthing, which is a powerful self-hosted tool that puts you in complete control of your data. First, I'll demonstrate how my setup works across all my devices. Then I'll walk you through the exact steps to configure your own Syncthing server. By the end of this video, you will have a private, secure system for syncing your Obsidian Vault anywhere with an internet connection. Join me if you're ready to take back control of your note syncing. Syncthing replaces closed source sync and cloud services with something open, trustworthy, and decentralized. Your data is your data alone, and you deserve to choose where it's stored and how it's transmitted over the internet. Proxmox allows you to run and manage virtual machines and containers. Proxmox provides a web-based interface for easy management. This allows you to run multiple operating systems on a single server. Mobius Sync Pro is a file synchronization app designed for iOS devices such as iPhones and iPads. It leverages the open source Syncthing engine to enable secure and efficient synchronization of files between iOS devices and other platforms without relying on cloud services. Tailscale is a mesh VPN service that provides secure and private connections between devices and services across different networks. It was founded in 2019 by former Google engineers. Tailscale has quickly gained popularity as an alternative to traditional VPNs. Cloudflare is a global network designed to improve the security, performance, and reliability of websites and online services. It acts as an intermediary between your website server and your website's visitors. The problem with third-party providers. When I first started using Obsidian, I was using my main Windows PC, but I also have some iOS devices such as iPhone and iPad. So when I first started using Obsidian, I investigated ways to sync my files across all of these devices. What I found was iOS will only allow you to sync seamlessly with iCloud or Obsidian Sync. Now, Obsidian Sync is a paid subscription service and it starts from $4 a month. So that reduced my options to iCloud, but iCloud only give you a free tier of 5 gigabytes of storage. Then you have to pay to use additional storage. Your data is also being stored on Apple's servers, so it's not private. Now, you could look at Google Drive, which gives you a little bit more storage space. You get 15 gigabytes, but you can't sync your Google Drive down to your iOS device. Plus, it's still stored on Google servers, so your data is not private. So Google Drive won't sync with Obsidian iOS. Google Drive is not 100% free or private. Apple iCloud is not 100% free or private. Obsidian Sync is not free, it's $4 per month. Obsidian needs iCloud or Obsidian Sync to sync files to Windows from iOS devices. And if we use a Cloudflare tunnel on a layer 7 protocol, Cloudflare can encrypt and decrypt our data, which exposes some of our data to Cloudflare. It is generally safe and widely trusted for securing websites, but it may not be ideal for highly sensitive data or privacy-critical applications. So the easiest sync method is Obsidian Sync, but this comes with a monthly subscription of $4. So if third-party providers cost money and your data is not private, what other solutions can we use? Well, the solution that I've discovered is Syncthing with Tailscale. Syncthing can be self-hosted on a home lab or a PC. Then you can broadcast your files out to your iOS devices and simply use a syncing app to sync those files across to those devices. And you can do this through a private mesh VPN, which is called Tailscale. So there's a few benefits to syncing Obsidian with Syncthing and Tailscale. Your files will be end-to-end encrypted when they're syncing across devices. Your devices will work across networks without port forwarding. There's no cloud storage middleman, so your data stays private. You can circumnavigate a lot of firewall issues. This is a zero trust security model. It has cross platform compatibility, so it will work with other devices such as Android. It's free for personal use, and you have complete control over your data. Syncthing Scenario Overview. Syncthing enables peer-to-peer file synchronization across devices. You can use relay servers to facilitate initial discovery when direct connections are unavailable, but this isn't the most secure method. Syncthing provides direct device-to-device file synchronization. This ensures private and secure data transfer without relying on centralized cloud storage. You can enhance your privacy by using a Tailscale private network. Syncthing allows you to synchronize files between your devices and a network-attached storage. This creates a private and controlled backup and sharing solution. Combine this with Tailscale to make all connections private. Syncthing's untrusted server feature allows users to synchronize files to devices or servers while ensuring the data remains encrypted and inaccessible to those untrusted devices. How to set up your Syncthing file server. So before we get started, I highly recommend manually backing up your Obsidian Vault, or you can use a free backup software like I do called EaseUS to do backup. And I've briefly covered how to do this in my Obsidian Troubleshooting Restoring Vaults video. So if you haven't seen that, go check it out. So I'm going to be installing a Syncthing Linux container on Proxmox virtual environment running on a mini HP PC. Now, if you don't have a home lab or Proxmox running, then you can just run Syncthing on your PC and link that to your Obsidian files and then sync your iPad and iPhone to your PC. And your PC will be the main folder that the iOS devices will be syncing from. So this will make a little bit more sense as we progress to the next section of the video. So here I am inside of my Proxmox server, and I need to create a new Linux container for Syncthing. So I'm going to head over to Proxmox VE helper scripts, and I'm going to come up to the top and type in Syncthing. Then I'm going to navigate to that page, and I'm going to copy the bash install script. I'm going to head back to my Proxmox server and go down to my shell and paste in my bash script. That's going to present me with my installer. So I'm going to say yes, and I'm just going to select the default settings. We can see the default settings at the top. It will ask me where I want to store my container template. Just going to select my 1 terabyte M.2 drive, and I'll do the same for my storage pool. So this is going to take a few minutes to go download and install Syncthing on my Linux container 110. If you get any no internet detected errors, just hit yes and it'll still go update and install the container correctly. So after a couple of minutes, Syncthing has installed correctly, and it's going to tell me where I can access the server. So I'm just going to highlight, right-click, copy, and paste this in my notes. And then I'm going to hit the middle mouse button, and that's going to open my new Syncthing Linux container. It's going to ask me if I want to allow anonymous usage reporting. So this just sends data to a Grafana dashboard to tell them what platform you're running Syncthing on. I don't really want to broadcast that to the dashboard, so I'm going to say no. And it's going to give me a danger warning and say that I need to update the username and password. So to do that, hit settings, come into GUI. I'm just going to put in admin. I'll choose my theme as dark because I like to work in dark. Then I'm going to have a look at connections, and I'll leave everything default to set up. We'll come back and change these later. I'll go back to general, and I'm going to change my device name to Syncthing server because this is going to be where I'm going to host all my Obsidian Vault files. So I'll hit save. Then it's going to log me out. So I need to log back in with my new username and password. I'm going to go ahead and delete the default folder. So left click, edit, remove. and it'll ask me if I'm sure. I'm going to say yes. I'll get a notice warning saying that I shouldn't run privileged or system user. So I'm just going to ignore that for now. So then I need to add a folder where I'm going to store my Obsidian Vault. So I'll hit add folder, and I'm going to call this one Paul's Obsidian Sync folder. I need to give it a unique ID. So I'll just call it Paul's _ Obsidian _ Vault. And then for the path, I'll put it in my home Syncthing Obsidian files directory on my Linux machine. Under sharing, there's no devices to share with yet. There's a tab for file versioning. So I want to control how many files I want to keep. So I'm going to select simple file versioning. There is a help tab here if you want to learn more about the different versionings, but this one's going to store 30 days worth of files, and I'm going to keep 5 of each. I'll leave the version path and clean up interval default. Under advanced, there's a few more advanced settings. We're not going to change any of these, but if you want to learn more, there's a couple of links here. So we'll just hit save on that. And then we have our staged Paul's Obsidian Sync folder. We can see there's no files in there at the moment. It's pointing to our home Syncthing Obsidian files. I've given it a folder ID. So what we need to do now is we need to install our first remote device. So that first device is going to be my main PC that I use Obsidian on all the time. Head over to syncthing.net/downloads and download your operating system. I'm running through this on Windows, so I'm just going to select Intel AMD 64-bit. Once you've downloaded and installed Syncthing, go ahead and launch it. That's going to automatically open up a local host on port 8384 Syncthing on your Windows PC. You'll get the same message again, so just hit no. It should detect your device name up the top here. Then it's going to tell me to update my username and password. So I want to come into GUI and I'm going to change my username and password. I'm going to choose dark theme again. I'll leave connections default again during the setup, and we'll come back and set this up properly later. So we'll hit save. Now it's going to log me out. So I'm just going to sign back in again. So I have my default folder again. So I'm going to click edit, remove, and say yes, and get rid of my default folder. I want to replace this where my Obsidian files are stored. So I'm going to hit add folder. I'm going to give it a label. I'm going to call it Paul's Obsidian Vault. And I need to match it to the folder ID on the Syncthing server. So I'm going to give it the same folder ID. So you can see it must be the same on all devices. And then I want to change my folder path to where my Obsidian Vault is stored. So this will be unique to where you store your files. For me, it's on my D drive. Then under sharing, there's no devices to share with. I don't need to worry about versioning because the Syncthing server is doing that for me. And I don't need to change anything in advanced or ignore patterns. So I'm just going to hit save. So that's going to show me how many files are in my Obsidian Vault. So a good thing to do here is open up your File Explorer and select everything except for the ST folder. Just right click, hit Properties, and you can see that my Vault has 3,461 files, 449 folders, which matches the local state here on this device. So I'm confident that's correct. So now I've got my PC ready. I've got my Syncthing server ready. So let's connect my PC to my server. So I'm going to come into the Syncthing server and I'm going to select Add Remote Device. And then I'm going to come back over to Paul's PC, come up to Actions, Show ID, and I'm going to copy this ID. I'm going to paste it over in the device ID. And then I'm going to give it a name to match. So I'm going to call this one Paul's PC. And then under sharing, I'm going to share with the Paul's Obsidian Sync folder on the server. And under advanced, I'll just leave this unchanged for now. And we'll change the address later on when we set up our Tailscale mesh VPN. So I'll hit save on this one. So you can see that it's showing as disconnected. So let's head over to Paul's PC and we can see that a new device has been detected, which is our Syncthing server. So it's going to ask us whether we want to add, ignore, or dismiss. So I'm going to say add, and it's going to pre-fill all those details. And then I want to hit sharing and select my Obsidian Vault on my PC to share with my Syncthing server. And then I'll just leave advanced and we'll change this later because we just want to set it up for now. So I'll hit save on that. So now you can see that it's detected the Syncthing server on my PC, and we can see that there is a sync process happening. So what it's doing is it's scanning my Obsidian Vault with all my files directories, and it's uploading or syncing to the Syncthing server. So we can see that 60% complete. So now it's telling me that it's up to date, and we can see that it says up to date. And we can check our Obsidian Sync folder. We can see that all of those files and directories have been uploaded to the Syncthing Linux container folder path, which we set up previously. If you wanted to access and view these files on your Syncthing server, then I highly recommend downloading WinSCP, which will give you SFTP access to view those files in your server if you need to. If you don't want to use WinSCP, what you can do is just head back over to your shell, select your Linux container, and then just do a cd space ... ls, and then cd home, list the home directory, cd Syncthing, and then cd Obsidian files. And then I can see all my Obsidian folders inside there. And if I cd into my Note Lab, then I can see all my markdown files inside there. So given that I won't be changing any of these files on the Syncthing server, I usually like to just leave them there as a source of truth. Okay, so the next step is to add our iOS devices. Now, in order to add our iOS devices, we will need a paid app called Mobius Sync Pro. The good thing about this app is it's a one-off payment, so there's no subscription fees. You just pay the flat $5 and then you have full access to use Syncthing on your iOS, iPhone, and iPad. So in my opinion, it's going to save you a lot in the long run compared to third-party cloud providers. How to set up Syncthing on Apple iPhone. So we're now going to sync our Obsidian Vault down to our iPhone. So the first thing we need to do is head over to the App Store and download Mobius Sync Pro. And you will need to also download Obsidian on your mobile device if you haven't done so already. So open up Obsidian and simply select Create a Vault. We're going to skip the Obsidian Sync option. Give your vault a name on your iPhone. So I'm just going to call this one Paul's Obsidian Vault. Now, if I open up the Files app, I can see that my new vault is in the folder called Obsidian, and we can see there's a folder called Paul Obsidian Vault. So I'm going to link Mobius Sync Pro to this folder. So open up Mobius Sync Pro, just swipe left, hit continue, swipe left again, hit get started. It'll probably detect your local network, so just hit allow. Now, the same process is on your phone, similar to what we did on the PC and the Syncthing server. So tap default folder, hit edit, then remove. And I'm just going to hit yes. And then what I want to do is I want to add folder. Now I need to give it a label. I'm going to call this one Paul's Obsidian Vault. Now the folder ID needs to match the Syncthing server. So refer back to your Syncthing server and type in the exact ID. So in my case, it's Paul's _ Obsidian _ Vault. Now it's going to ask me the folder path. So I'm going to select pick external folder. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to navigate down to Obsidian. And I'm going to pick my Obsidian Vault, which is empty. And I'm going to hit open. It's going to warn me that I'm attempting to synchronize a folder outside of Mobius Sync. I'm just going to say proceed. Then under sharing, I don't need to select anything. I don't need to change file versioning or do anything under advanced. I just need to hit save. So now I have my Obsidian Vault on my iPhone linked to Mobius Sync. So the next thing I need to do is I want to come up to the settings and change the name of my device to Paul's iPhone. I don't need to change the theme, don't need to change anything in iOS. I'm going to keep my connections as they are for now, and I don't need to ignore devices or folders. I just need to hit save. So now I have my device set as Paul's iPhone. So I can add remote device, then tap on scan QR code, and then it's going to ask me to access the camera. So I'll select allow, and then I come into my Syncthing server, head up to actions, select show ID, and I'm going to scan the QR code. Then I'm going to select sharing, and I'm going to select my Vault folder on my iPhone to share with the Syncthing server. I'll leave advanced as it is, and I'm just going to hit save. So now if I jump back over to my Syncthing server, I can see that I've added a new device called Paul's iPhone. So I'm going to select add device. It's going to pop up this setting here. I'm going to leave the address dynamic and we'll change this later. I'm going to share my Obsidian Sync folder with my iPhone. So I'll tick that box there, and everything else should have filled out with the QR code. So I'll hit save. So now you can see that Paul's iPhone is added as a remote device, and we can see that it is starting the sync process down to Paul's iPhone. I can see on my iPhone that my local files are being updated, and I'm just setting this up on my local network before we connect it to our mesh VPN later on. So it's probably taken about 1 to 2 minutes to sync my Obsidian Vault onto my iPhone. So everything's showing up to date. So let's go open Obsidian on my iPhone. If I tap on the side, I can see that all my files are appearing. So if I select the cogwheel, I need to change my theme to my theme. And I also need to turn on community plugins in order for my plugins to show. And the other thing I've noticed is I need to go into core plugins and reset my core plugins. So I'll turn off sync in core plugins, turn on /commands, turn on my workspaces, turn on my random note, and anything else that I need. Go back into community plugins and turn on community plugins. And that's going to load my theme on my phone. So now I have all my community plugins. So then the only thing left to do is to head into Appearance and apply any CSS snippets. So I'm going to turn on my theme and any other snippets that I'm using. And then I'll go check my cards, and I can see all my cards notes are inside there. And check my spaces and see all my notes are in there. So I've got full access to my Obsidian Vault on my iPhone. Now, if you make any changes on your iPhone to sync them back up to your server, you need to simply open Mobius Sync again, and that will redetect the iPhone and update any changes to your server. How to set up Syncthing on Apple iPad. So the next step is to set up Syncthing on our iPad. Open up the App Store and download Mobius Sync Pro. We'll also need to download and install Obsidian. Once Obsidian has downloaded and installed, open up Obsidian, and we want to create a new vault. When it asks us to set up sync, we're going to select skip for now. Then we're going to give our iPad vault a name. So I'll keep this the same as all my other devices, Paul's Obsidian Vault, and then I'm going to select Create a Vault. So now I have an empty vault ready to connect to my Syncthing server. So jump into the Mobius Sync app. We'll be presented with the welcome screen, so just swipe left. Where it says local network access, tap on the continue button. Then we swipe left again and we'll simply tap get started. Make sure you're connected to your local Wi-Fi network so it can see your devices. And we should get a message that says allow Mobius Sync to find devices on local networks. And we're just going to select allow. We'll tap on the default folder, select edit, then tap remove. It'll say, are we sure we want to remove our folder? And we're going to say yes. Then we want to add our empty Obsidian Vault folder where our files will be synced. So I'm selecting add folder. Then I'm simply going to pick an external folder, go back, select the Obsidian folder, then select Pause Obsidian Vault, then tap open. It'll warn me that I'm attempting to synchronize a folder outside of Mobius Sync, so I'll just proceed at my own risk. You can see that it's pre-labeled the folder label as Pause Obsidian Vault. So all I need to do is change the folder ID to match my Syncthing server. So jump onto your Syncthing server and enter the folder ID. So mine is pause_obsidian_vault. I don't need to worry about sharing file versioning, ignore patterns or advance, so I'll just tap save. Now I'm going to tap on add remote device on my iPad, and then over on my Syncthing server, I'm going to head up to actions and left click show ID. That's going to present my QR code. So then on my iPad, I'll touch scan QR code. It's going to ask me for access to the camera. I'll select allow. Then I'm going to scan my QR code. So then I'll tap the sharing tab and I'm going to check Pause Obsidian Vault to share my iPad folder with my Syncthing server. We'll leave advanced for now and we'll come back and change the address later. Tap on save. Now head it back over to the Syncthing server and you should see a new device notification. So we simply just need to select add device. It's going to pre-populate the device ID and device name. Under the sharing tab, ensure that we're sharing the Pause Obsidian Sync folder with our new iPad device. Leave the advanced tab as is. We'll come back and change the address later on. Then go ahead and hit save. So that's going to add our iPad, and we can see that it's going to trigger the sync process straight away to sync those files down to our new iPad. So our iPad is now fully synced to our Syncthing server. So we'll now open Obsidian and check our vault. If I tap on the left pane, I can see all my Obsidian files and folders are appearing. I need to open the cogwheel and go down to Appearance and change my theme to my preferred minimal theme. Then I need to navigate down to Core Plugins, check over my core plugins, and re-enable any core plugins that are disabled by default. So I'll go ahead and enable Random Note, /commands, and workspaces. I'll tap on Community Plugins and turn on Community Plugins. Then under Restricted Mode, I'm going to turn on and reload. I'll tap on the left pane again, tap on the Settings cogwheel, and I'm going to tap on Appearance and go down and turn on any CSS snippets that I'm using on my main PC. Now, for some reason, I need to tap on Community Plugins again and turn on Community Plugins, and that will go ahead and turn on my Community Plugins. So now I can see I've got my minimal theme enabled with my CSS snippets and all my Community Plugins are turned on. I can see my notes are appearing on the iPad, and if I tap on cards, I can see the cards loading. And if I tap on spaces, I can see that my spaces are loading. Securing our devices with Tailscale. Now that we've set up our Syncthing server and connected our remote devices, it's time to secure our connections with Tailscale. The Tailscale is a VPN service that will make it easy for us to secure our devices through a private mesh VPN network. So to get started, we'll head over to tailscale.com and we need to select the Start Connecting Devices button. This will present you with a sign up with your identity provider page, and you can select any of the providers here. I'll be using my Google account, so I'll select sign up with Google. Then I'm just going to add my Google account, and that's going to log me into the Tailscale admin console. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to add my Syncthing Linux server. So I'll simply go down to where it says add devices to your network, and I'm going to select Linux. And all I need to do is copy this curl command where it says install Tailscale on Linux. Then navigate to your Syncthing Linux container and select console. Right click and left click paste and then hit enter. That's going to go ahead and install Tailscale on our Syncthing container. Now, before we can start the Tailscale service and connect it to our Tailnet, we need to enable network tunneling on our Linux container. So to do that, we'll go up to Proxmox and we'll go into shell. And I just want you to type in sudo nano xpve lxc, the number of your container.conf, and this is going to access the configuration file. Then on the last line, we're going to paste 2 lines of code, and this is going to allow us to create and use a virtual network interface with this Linux container. So we hit Control X, then yes to save. We need to reboot our container. So I'm just going to come up, reboot my Syncthing container. Once my container is rebooted, I'll select my server IP, right click, copy, then go open up my Syncthing server. I'll come back into Proxmox and I'm going to type in the command tailscale up. This is going to give me a login to authenticate my Syncthing server. So I'm going to highlight, right click, left click, copy, paste that into a browser tab. And it's going to ask me if I want to connect this device to my Tailnet. I'm going to select connect. If I select visit the console, it will show me that the Syncthing server has been added to my Tailscale Tailnet, and it's been given a IP address here. So I'm simply just going to copy this IP address, and I'm going to refer to my network map here, and I'm just going to take the old local IP and replace that with my new Tailscale IP. Tailscale won't use port 8384. I need to use port 22,000. So now that I have my Syncthing server added to my Tailnet, I'm going to go ahead and add my PC. So I'm currently on Paul's PC. So all I need to do is launch Syncthing. That's going to automatically open up Syncthing on Paul's PC. And what I need to do now is I need to add Paul's PC to Tailscale. So to do that, I head over to tailscale.com/download, select Windows and download Tailscale for Windows. Go ahead and install Tailscale. Then I want you to launch the app and sign in with your Google account. It'll ask us if we want to connect the device again. I'm going to say connect, and then I can visit the console immediately again. So now I can see that Paul's PC has been added to my Tailnet, and it's got a private IP address here. So I can copy this address and paste it onto my network map, and that's now going to be Paul's PC. So now that I have my 2 devices set up, I'm going to go change some settings on each of the Syncthing servers. So we'll start with the Syncthing server. What I want to do is I want to come up to Actions, select Settings, head over to Connections, and I want to disable NAT Traversal, Global Discovery, Enable Relaying, and Local Discovery. If you want, you can leave Local Discovery on, but I'm just going to disable it completely. Going to hit Save, and then I'm going to do the same for Paul's PC running on localhost. Head over to Connections and turn off all the connections. So the next step is I need to update my remote devices. So I'm going to click my Syncthing server, and I need to update my address here from my local IP. So I'm going to select Edit. I'm going to come over to Advanced, and I'm under where it says Dynamic. I'm going to change this to TCP //. And this needs to link to my Syncthing server on my private Tailscale IP. So I'll come back here and I'll copy my Syncthing Tailscale IP. It doesn't map to port 8384, so I need to put :22000. Then I just hit Save. I'm going to do the same over on my Syncthing server. So I'll come over to my Syncthing server, go down to Paul's PC, hit Edit, navigate to Advanced, change my address to TCP //, grab my Tailscale IP for Paul's PC, paste that in, and then put port 22000 and hit Save. To verify my connections are working, I'm going to come up to Actions and restart my Syncthing server. I'm going to do the same for Paul's PC, Actions and Restart. So the Syncthing server has restarted. I can open up Paul's PC and I can now see that my address is resolving my private IP here. And it's remapped my port 22000 to 30108. And I can see that it's up to date. I'll go over to Paul's PC, drop down my Syncthing server, and I can see that my address is pointing to 22,000 still with my Syncthing server, and it's showing up to date. So the next step is going to be to add my iPhone and iPad to my Tailnet. So I need to download Tailscale on my iPhone as well as my iPad and connect those to my Tailnet. So let's go do that now. Securing your Apple iPad with Tailscale. We'll now connect our iPad to our Tailnet. So we need to go download Tailscale on our iPad. Once Tailscale is downloaded, we'll tap to open the app and we're going to select Get Started. Then there'll be a notice about privacy and we'll select I understand. This is optional, but I like to keep notifications off. It's going to tell us it needs to install a VPN configuration in order to connect. So we'll tap on Install, and then it's going to ask us for access to our VPN configurations on our iPad. So we'll select Allow. So now Tailscale, which should ask us to sign in. So we'll select Continue, and then go ahead and select your Tailscale account that you set up. I'm going to select my Google account. So then I get a notification saying that I'm about to connect this device to my Tailscale Tailnet. So I just select Connect. Now I can see that I have 3 devices in my Tailnet. I have Paul's PC, Syncthing server, and my new iPad. If I jump back into my admin console, I can see that my iPad is showing with an IP address of 100.93.27.88. So let's go update Mobius Pro on our iPad. So head back over to Mobius Sync Pro, then come down to Syncthing server, tap on Syncthing server and select Edit. And we need to change our address to our new Tailscale IP. So TCP ://100.100.119.112 : 22,000. Hit Save. Come up to Actions, jump into Settings, tap on Connections, and uncheck Enable NAT Traversal, Global Discovery, Local Discovery, and Enable Relaying. Select Save. So I'm just going to force close Mobius Sync Pro and reopen it again and tap the Syncthing server and I can see my new private Tailscale IP Syncthing server IP address, and it's showing up to date. So now I'm confident that my iPad is privately connecting to my Syncthing server as long as my Tailscale VPN is enabled in the top right, and you can see it there where it says VPN. If for some reason your VPN becomes disconnected, simply open up your Tailscale app and hit the connect button or the toggle switch at the top left-hand side, and that will go and re-establish your Tailnet private connection to connect to all your Syncthing devices. Securing your Apple iPhone with Tailscale. Let's now go secure our iPhone with Tailscale. So we'll head over to the App Store and download the Tailscale app. Then we'll open the Tailscale app and we'll select Get Started, read and accept the privacy notice. We'll say no to notifications. And when it asks us to add our VPN connection, we'll tap Install and we'll select Allow. It's now going to ask us to sign in and we'll tap Continue. Then I'm going to go ahead and add my Tailscale account, and I'll use my Gmail account again. It'll present me with a notice that I'm about to connect the device to my Tailnet, so I'll select Connect. Now I have my iPhone 13 Pro added to my Tailscale admin console, and I can see my other devices are showing there as well. So we'll go secure Mobius Sync on our iPhone. So go open up Mobius Sync Pro on your iPhone. Then I want you to head down to the Syncthing server, tap on the Syncthing server and select Edit. Head over to Advanced, and we want to change the address to match our Syncthing server. So it'll be tcp:100.100.119.112:22,000. Scroll down and select Save. Then we want to tap on our cogwheel up the top right, select Settings, head over to Connections and deselect Enable NAT Traversal, Local Discovery, Global Discovery, Enable Relaying, select Save. So we'll force close the Mobius app and then reopening the app again. And then when we scroll down and tap on the Syncthing server, it should show our new private Tailscale IP address. And we should see a green tick to let us know that it's connected successfully. We can head over to our Syncthing server and see that our phone is showing up to date. So we'll now update our remote devices on our Syncthing server. I'll start with Paul's iPhone. I'll select Edit, and then I'm going to jump into my admin console for Tailscale, and I'm going to grab my new private Tailnet IP address, and I'm going to replace the address with TCP:// the IP address, and I'll go ahead and I'll hit Save. For the iPad, I'm going to do the same for the iPad. So I'll come down and I'll select Edit, make sure I'm on the Advanced tab. Then I'll come into my Tailscale admin console, copy my IP address, type in TCP:// my private IP address, :22,000, hit Save. Now to test your connection, just open up your iPhone and iPad and ensure that Tailscale is connected. And when you go open up Mobius Sync on those two devices, you will see the remote devices showing as up to date in your Syncthing server. Troubleshooting sync issues. Before we wrap up the video, I just wanted to make a mention that Syncthing will create a .st folder inside of your Obsidian Vault. And inside here, you'll have a text file that is a folder marker for your Syncthing folder ID, so don't delete this folder. Also, during the setup process, just check through your .obsidian folder and ensure that you don't have any .sync conflict files in your Obsidian folder. So you can see here that during the setup process, appearance.json, core plugins.json, and workspace tac mobile all encountered some sync conflicts. And I recommend downloading and using a free application called WinMerge to just compare your backed up config file to ensure that your settings are up to date with your primary JSON files. To find all the sync conflicts in your Obsidian folder, you can just do a little search for sync tac conflict, and that's going to bring up all the conflicts that were encountered during setup. It seems that I've only had sync conflict issues with the JSON configuration files, and for full transparency, you can see that 2 plugins were affected, Recent Files and Commander. The rest were conflicts detected in the .obsidian folder, which we've already covered. So that's how you take control of your Obsidian notes and sync them privately using Syncthing. I hope you found this guide helpful and are excited to set up your own self-hosted solutions. If you run into any issues setting up Syncthing, don't hesitate to ask. I'll do my best to help. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more tips and tricks on Obsidian or self-hosting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.